Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. I have a great show today. I've been waiting for this show for about 3 weeks because when I heard what this organization is doing, I had to get the CEO and founder on the show. His name is Mr. John McDaniel. And of course, he's the CEO and founder of an amazing organization called the Wounded Warriors in Action Foundation, WWIA. And when I had a pre-interview call with John just a couple of weeks ago, and we started talking about what his organization does to really serve the nation's heroes. I mean, we're talking about combat wounded Purple Heart recipients and what the organization does with these heroes. It's remarkable. I mean, they offer world-class outdoor sporting activities as a means to not only recognize these heroes, but honor their sacrifice and encourage their independence and allow them to connect with their community. I had to bring him on the show. So, John, I'm so excited to have you on the DotCom magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, Jake. I appreciate the opportunity.
I mean, it's unbelievable what you're doing. You're promoting so much healing and so much wellness through sort of the camaraderie that's shared with, all these sort of wounded heroes and the outdoors. I mean, it's just a perfect combination. Before we get started, though, because we have so many questions, let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet. You tell the story better than I do. Tell us about what you're doing, and then I'll start with the questions.
Okay, sure. Well, I did a 20-year military career on active duty. I retired as a lieutenant colonel, infantry, special operations, Airborne Ranger, all that, scary stuff. And when I was here at my last duty assignment here at SOCOM across the bay from where I live now, it was 2005 was my last duty assignment. And I had a couple of years there before I got my 20 in. And, the war was raging, and we were making sausage at SOCOM. We were prosecuting the war, as the global synchronizers, and all that was good. But I was a little far away from the forward edge of battle at that particular time in my career. And so to stay connected to it, I would go over to the James A. Haley Polytrauma Center in Tampa. And up there on the sixth, at the time, I think it was the sixth floor of the ward, where the worst of the worst, injuries, veterans were. And a lot of Army guys, a lot of Marine Corps guys, very young, 18, 19, 20 years old. And the Polytrauma Center, for those that don't know, they deal with traumatic brain injuries and spinal cord injuries. And so that's, the polytrauma. And anyway, it was just heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking to see, these young men, chewing on rubber balls so they don't swallow their tongues, their girlfriends, their wives, their mothers, their fathers, all sitting bedside wondering if and whenever, their son was going to return. And I thought to myself, I got to do something. I'm already doing something. Yeah, sure. Okay. I'm wearing a uniform, but I felt at that point in my life, I guess, in my career, Jake, that there was more to do. And I thought that I would have a greater impact if I was to do something. And I didn't know what that something was, but I would go up there routinely. And so, as I was getting ready to retire, I started scratching down the things that I was passionate about, because everybody's heard, hey, find something that you're passionate about and figure out how to, make a difference in the world doing it or make a career out of it. Well, I took that very seriously, and I wrote down on a piece of paper, heroes. And to me, if you bleed in our country's uniform or boots that were issued to you, you're a hero, full stop. It's a hard standard. So, those that are wounded, the outdoors, believe it or not, hunting and fishing specifically in the outdoors, and this idea of America, the returning from combat, from a foreign country back here. I knew very well what had happened to our Vietnam heroes. I was at the University of Wisconsin in the mid 1980s, and Vietnam was still very fresh in that and the student population's mind, I guess. And I had studied the Vietnam Wars, and I was like, inside of me, I felt like there was something that I could do. I didn't know what it was at that particular time, but I knew that there was something that I had to do to help right that wrong. And so at the end of the day, I combined all those things that I was passionate about, and I came up with the Wounded Warriors in Action Foundation. And I knew that there was a lot of healing in the outdoors to be had. And I know it was helping me. And so I started taking guys out of the James A. Haley Polytrauma Center and onesies and twosies and taking them fishing here in the Bay. I had a property down in the Florida Keys. I had some property up in the North Woods of Wisconsin. And the guys that were prosecuting the war, buddies of mine who were battalion brigade commanders, would call me up and go, hey, John, here's a name and a number of a guy that I think you could really help. And so I was doing it like that. All right. You don't need a piece of paper from the government to, that says you're a charity to do good in the world. And so I was doing that without a piece of paper, without 501c3 status, because I had resource and I was willing to do it. And so that's what I was doing. And then very short, into it a few years, I suppose, I began to realize that, I could serve a lot more if more heroes, if I, took this to the next level, and because it was working for them, it was working for me. And so that's what I did. I filed for C status and it was made effective retroactive to 2007. And the next thing I was going to I was in the process of building a healing center in the North Woods of Wisconsin. And then the phone started ringing, the email started coming, and we launched a website. And what I found out was very rapidly that I wasn't the only person on the planet that thought this was a good idea. So instead of building this, healing center, which we're still going to do and are doing, but I sort of pumped the brakes on that idea and started opening up our ranks to many people across the country that said they wanted to help. And we were just shaping their ideas off of my basic model and vetting people to make sure that they were, legitimate and they were in it to win it, if you will. And here we are 16 years downstream, and we've got 50 missions in 35 different states and a couple foreign countries, and very proud of what's happened across the fabric of America to help these heroes of ours.
Yeah, it's so great, John. When I think of you and think about what you're doing, I think of leadership, and I think of passion, and I think of dedication. And one thing, when we spoke earlier that really caught my attention was the group of people that you have on your team. And you have a great team. You have executive staff, you have advisors, you have board of directors. You also have these people called the pro staff. I want to talk about the pro staff because they're sort of the ones that go out and do the guiding, and they're the ones that sort of serve the vets. Let's talk about the pro staff and sort of how they interact with the people that you send out into these incredible experiences.
Okay, well, that's a great question. Probably for the first, I would say, 8 years, I was on every single mission that we did. I was leading every single mission. And I was on the road. I think at the time I was on the road like 48 weeks out of 52. It was not a sustainable model. And so, and there was way too much focus on me, to be honest with you. I'd show up and people would have a tendency to gravitate or spend a little bit too much, in my opinion, energy on me, and not where the focus needed to be on the heroes, more on the heroes, less on me. And so I started looking around our ranks, and I had been looking for a handful of guys that I had served that I thought would perform very well in this space. And one, you got to have the right, it's a combination of IQ and EQ, right? I mean, you gotta be intelligent, but you also have to be emotionally intelligent. And so I knew that if I could find a group of combat wounded veterans who were like-minded, like me, who had the desire, the skill set, the will to perform in this space, interact between me and my headquarters, the volunteers across the country, the communities that are supporting them. If I could find, and the heroes, most importantly, interact well with the heroes, our clients. Okay. And so the bottom line is we created a guide school about 6 years ago. And we use Maine's Master Guide program as the centerpiece. And we add on to that. I mean, it's a 10-day guide school that I think is probably the finest guide school on the planet. I'm going to say that. I challenge anybody to find a better one. And we're training these amazing heroes. And to this date, we've run 4 iterations of that. We have a total of 21 guides on the staff. These are Purple Heart recipients who are all volunteers. Nobody's getting paid. They're leading approximately 3 to 4 missions annually, and in the field with their peers, with a very polished skill set that they learn through our guide school, which is, by the way, funded by the VA. Thank you. And so it's a very professional course. And that was sort of one of my objectives. I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, was to professionalize the force, and to take the spotlight away from me, power down model, get the right people in the right places. And I'll tell you, it has made a huge impact. And ultimately, like they say, any organization, you can measure the value or effectiveness of any organization by how well they perform in the absence of their boss. Okay. And so that tells you, I think, that you're doing a pretty good job if they're out there performing at high standards and the boss is not around. And that's the case 99.9% of the time in field operations, other than the few events that I still continue to lead. But yeah, so very proud of that group of professionals. We have one female and 20 males that are Purple Heart recipients that have been through our guide school and are leading these activities across the country. And it's very humbling to me to have such a talented and wonderful group of combat wounded heroes who are leading these mission sets.
Wow, what a great group of individuals. They're all Purple Heart recipients themselves. Let's talk about it a little bit, because you're honoring these recipients. It's at no cost to them to go on one of these wonderful engagements. It's not, you vet these people. I mean, that they have to apply online. They have to provide the proof of the Purple Heart in the form of certain documentation. You want their photos, of course. It's very, very confidential as well. When we think about it, okay, we have these Purple Heart recipients. They apply. They've heard about it. You've got the guides. They're doing such a great job. You put together the program. What happens at the program? How long is a program? What changes in these people, these heroes, that when they leave, they have a mind-blowing experience?
That's a great question, Jake. And I think in each scenario is different, but I think there's a common thread that you can run throughout. We have over I think at last count, it was 1,000 first-person testimonials on our website. Okay. Under the About, there's a testimonial block. You can read all about it. But these are first-person testimonials, right? And what I've always said, and I think is true, it's not what I have to say about the organization. Okay. It's not what you have to say about your organization that really matters. It's what your customers or your clients have to say that really matters. And people don't spend enough time really listening to what they have to say. And if you ask them to just say, hey, that's what I started doing 16 years ago. I've got a journal. Now there's probably 30 journals out there, but I had an original journal that I would give to the heroes and just say, hey, listen, I'm not going to ask you to do anything other than enjoy yourself this weekend. We're going to go fishing for muskie. We're going to go pursue ruffed grouse and woodcock and white-tailed deer with our bows and geese and ducks. Okay, in this 5-day weekend. Okay, we're going to do all those things. But if you decide to just stay in bed one of those mornings because, you just you'd rather, go outside and stare at the trees. I said, I'm cool with that. All right. This is for you. Nobody's ever taken me up. I think one guy took me up on that one time. He said, I just kind of want to hang out with you today. And I said, no problem, man. But so we tailor these opportunities based on their needs. All of the events are adaptive in nature based on their injuries and limitations. Our guide staff is fully trained on doing adaptive sporting techniques. So it's all tailored, but you'd be amazed at what they tell you. I still to this day, I have a hard time reading some of them, the testimonials, and I guess got goosebumps thinking about some of them, because I've even been told deadpan, and look me right deadpan in the eye and say, you saved my life. I had a guy, and I won't mention his name, but this was probably 5 or 6 years ago. I later saw him at a gas station. We were leaving a small remote site in Kansas, in Cawker City. And I was getting gas, getting ready to go back to Wisconsin. And here Frank comes pulling up, and he sees me in my truck, and I had a big, the big logo on the truck and everything. And he kind of like wedges me in, and he gets out of the car. And I was like, "Hey, Frank, how's it going?" He pulls me aside. And he says, "Listen, I want to tell you something. Last week, I lost both my dad and my son." And he said, "I was thinking about, taking my life before this event, but now that I've been reconnected, you've helped me find purpose in my life." And went on and just shook my hand and said, "Thank you." Now, I'm not saying that happens every time, because it doesn't. But, I think if you can save one life, just one, because, the suicide rate, you've seen that on everybody's seen that. It's like we're losing 22 veterans a day. It's crazy. I mean, that's just unacceptable. How is that possible? In our discussion, a veteran's taken their life, and so anyway, providing them purpose, getting them reconnected, and there's something magical about, I think anyway. I mean, when I came back from combat, everything had changed. I mean, the perspective on everything changes. You can't help but change. But to come back to this country and not be welcomed back, like what happened to our Vietnam veterans, is a sin. Okay. It's absolutely a sin. And I think we've learned from that. I know we have, and that's great. But to come back and then be welcomed by people who you don't even know, who are opening their homes, their property, their communities, their resources, to say, thank you for what you did. That's what happens in every one of these missions. Honor, connect, and heal. Those are our buzzwords. Honor what they did, connect them with each other in communities, and help them heal through that process, that layering process, right? To make them feel like what they did was valued, and it was. And so that's the formula. That's what's happening, and it's quite amazing. And so. When you read those testimonials, you'll see, everything from, soup to nuts in there, but they all have one thing in common, which is to say, hey, I didn't expect this, I didn't expect people, to put this much energy into what they're doing. And that's what we do. We have a world-class standard. We're not coming off it. Everything is meticulously planned. And very well executed. And it's all about providing, it's a full-fledged guide service, but they don't pay a thing for it. On average, if you decided to, say tomorrow, go, hey, next, 3 months from now, I want to go elk hunting in Colorado, break out your checkbook, okay? Because you're going to spend $10,000 on that deal. I promise you, before you even get on the airplane. And so this is expensive business, but I think it's worth it. I know it is. So that's what we do. That's our mission: provide world-class outdoor sporting activities aimed at, honoring, connecting, and healing them.
I love it. Honor, connect, and heal. It's powerful. And of course, you mentioned, it's very organized. It's very sedulous. John, that's amazing. And of course, everything you do is really organized down to the brass tacks, because these heroes, they expect things to be run sort of the way they were in the armed forces, which is really down to the strategy, down to the tactic, down to the mission, make sure every minute is precisely figured out, and you have a special way in which you sort of approach that I'm sure resonates with the Purple Heart recipient. So tell us about that a little bit.
Sure. We write an operations order for every single mission that we do. It's called an op ord. And in the Army, in Army language, an operations order has five basic paragraphs to it. The basic who, what, where, when, and why. It's got the communications piece, the logistics piece, the mission, the execution, the situation, all these, components that these men are used to seeing. And so, I've written, in my career, hundreds of them, probably had my hands on thousands of them. And I just thought it was a really great way to communicate to our heroes, what are we doing? Who are we doing it with? Where are we doing it? All the details. And so we took that 5-paragraph operations order. We expanded it, put, paragraph 6 for safety and, but basically it is a full-fledged operations order. And they receive that usually about 2 weeks before we go hot. Gives all the, their timeline, their flight information, who's picking them up, because these guys don't like uncertainty. That's the one thing I learned. They love predictability. And when they've got a colonel involved, I think I wasn't a general, I did 20 years and 20 minutes, and I was done, I loved it. And I could have gone on, but I was like, I think I'm done with this. I've achieved everything I can or want to. And so I think, at the rank of lieutenant colonel, I'm approachable. And they're used to it. Battalion commanders, I mean, that's, that was the man. When you're a soldier, that's the first level of, beside your company commander, but that's the first level where you have, UCMJ authority, Uniform Code of Military Justice. I can take your rank. I can fine you. There's the law, and he's the man. And for most enlisted guys, that guy's kind of unapproachable, but you can still, if you go to see him, it's either really good or really bad. And so, I think that having a guy like me in charge that, was at that level really seems to work well for the organization. But yeah, I mean, we tie all the knots, cross all the T's, dot all the I's, and there's enough room in there, obviously, for a lot of, creativity. And we leave that to the hosts. Like, I don't micromanage anybody, that's not really true. When people need to be micromanaged, I do that, but it's very rare. And it's always at the headquarters. I don't mess with the people out in the field doing their missions. If you have clear intent, clear purpose, and a solid mission statement, you'd be surprised what great people will do for you, So everybody's operating under this constraint, spirit, and intent. And, it just seems to really, really work well. And I think the guys respond to it. I hear all the time, hey, I love the operations order. And, it kind of makes me smile. And I've tortured my staff enough on the thing where we've got it really, pretty straight.
Yeah, I love it, John. And for the entrepreneurs watching the show, this operations order is a great lesson to be learned because John knows his client base. He knows the people who he's serving. And just like any entrepreneur in any business, you need to know your clients and you need to provide them something that will resonate for them and something that will sort of tickle their hot button and something that will make them feel comfortable doing business with you and something that makes them feel comfortable with your organization. And in this particular case, John's sending out the operations order, which is something they're familiar with and something that they've seen before and something that makes them feel very secure and very structured, is a great way to approach his clients. So this is a great lesson for other entrepreneurs as well. John, I know you've only cut out a certain amount of time today, and I'm just delighted to have you on the show. I know I'm bringing you back because there's so much to unpack. We did talk about the age. We have, Purple Heart recipients going all the way back. I don't know if you even have World War II people now that are participating, but give us some outlook or some color or some fabric about what it looks like. How old is the oldest participant at the Wounded Warriors in Action Foundation?
Okay, great question. We serve all Purple Heart recipients, by the way. I don't know if you can see that, but But that right there is that's our challenge coin. And that's, for those that haven't seen the Purple Heart, it's got George Washington's picture on it. But anyway, we serve all Purple Heart recipients regardless of the era of conflict. So when we started, there was a handful of World War II guys 16 years ago who were still ready, willing, and able to go out on these missions and had applied. And so we have serviced them. Now, I don't think we've done one in a while because you're really not capable, and unfortunately they're leaving us, to do any more missions. But Korea, we still see veterans from Korea, certainly from Vietnam. And when we started including Vietnam veterans, like one per event, it made a huge impact because the young guys that go, they can see themselves in that individual, and they just fast forward the tape 20, 30 years. And so the Vietnam veterans who, as you know, weren't welcomed back properly, they're so grateful for what we're doing, and it's just such a pleasure to see and sense the gratitude that they have. Okay. But the average veteran now in our population that we're serving, these are all pretty much, OIF, OEF, that's Operation Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom veterans. And then there's this other, New Dawn, which is other than, that particular region. But that is the vast preponderance of the veterans that we're serving. So their average age is probably around 36, 38, something along those lines. But we still have, guys that are in their 70s. Some of these Vietnam veterans are in their 70s and they're just doing great and they love it. And so, that's what it looks like. A lot of fireside stuff happening. A lot of camaraderie, a lot of storytelling. And I think, you provide them a very safe, very, very safe place to do that. And you'd be surprised what you hear, and I think there's a lot of therapy. It's just a proven fact. There's a lot of therapy in just telling your story. And we never ask, but it always comes up. You get them around a fire after a hard day outside in the field, and they're gonna start talking, and you'd be surprised, the 1,000 points of light. Oh, I know that guy. It's amazing what's happening there, men have been, telling stories by the fireside and eating meat since we crawled out of the water. You know what I mean? It's been, this is something that's happened, since the Stone Ages, and there's something really, therapeutic and germane to what we're doing to get them together in a group. We're very tribally oriented. I don't care what anybody says, the military armed forces, regardless of the branch or service, those are tribes, and you get these guys around each other and they feel safe, especially amongst their combat wounded, and magic things are going to happen.
Yeah, it's amazing. Before we go,
I
want to throw a little sidewinder in here, a little curveball, a little flamethrower at you.
Love it.
Because I didn't really get you prepared for this, but I'm thinking about it. And of course, you mentioned about the suicide rate, and it's incredible. Like you said, during this interview, a veteran has taken his or her life. So whether someone's watching the show as a Purple Heart recipient, maybe they're not a Purple Heart recipient, maybe there's just someone struggling watching the show. Maybe you could share, just from your perspective, something that might give them a little spark, something that might have them rethink where they're at and want to continue to move forward and engage in a positive way, so that, we keep them around for a lot longer and they continue to be, members of our society that we can count on and that we can depend on and contributors. So if somebody's having a tough time right now, John, that's watching the show, what could you say to them to maybe help them out right now?
Get on a team. Okay. That's one of the things I hear a lot about the foundation and our work is, they put me back on a team. They were part of a team. Okay. When they got hurt, and that, and they're no longer, the vast majority of them are no longer able to perform their military duties based on the nature of their injuries and wounds. And so, the Army, the Marine Corps, whatever service branch, you're done, you get discharged. There's plenty of support, from the Veterans Administration. They always tell me, hey, sir, I don't need any more stitches. I don't need any more pills. Okay. What I need is more of this, and what this is being on a team. So, if you're out there and you're struggling and you're wondering, what to do, get yourself on a team. Okay. You got to take that step. We can't put you on a team, but you can find a team to get on, and there's plenty of veteran service organizations out there and other things, whether it be, from fly fishing to bowling, it doesn't matter. Get on a team, get connected. Okay. And get up off the couch, put away the phone and get on a team. And commit yourself to it, and I'll tell you that great things will happen. It really will, to turn your life around. And so that's my message, get on a team.
I love it. We talk about the team all the time. I'm going to bring you back on the show because I think we could do a full hour with you talking about how powerful people are coming out of service and what they know how to do and how they know how to participate and how they know how to follow directions and get things done, and why they would be such a great asset to any business or any CEO or founder building a business. I mean, it's really incredible. I mean, what you've done at the Wounded Warriors and Action Foundation is incredible. For the people watching the show, reach out to John, reach out to his team. They're very accessible. Honor, connect, and heal just resonates for me. You said you were in the armed forces for 20 years and 20 minutes. I think somebody else said that he was in for 20 years and 20 seconds. So I'm not sure which one was in longer. But listen, you went to the Poly Trauma Center. You saw what was happening. You said to yourself, wow, let's do something here. Let's make a difference. Let's connect. And you've done it, and your team is remarkable. So I wanted to thank you so much for not only coming on the show, but really giving us an honor to have you, someone that represents so many great people through your mission and through your foundation, for coming on the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today. John, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jake. My pleasure.